Hello and welcome to VERGE Net Zero. My name's Giles and I'm so excited to introduce you to the first edition of our new event. And I'm thrilled that thousands of people from around the world have signed up to be part of it. I'm talking to you from Bolinas Ridge. It's just across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. When I first came to California in 2007, I didn't plan on staying, but beautiful places like this is a big part of the reason why I'm still here. Over the next 2 days, in the keynote sessions at this event, I'm going to take you on a tour of this area, and I'm going to explain why so much of what you see around me is relevant to the idea of net zero. But before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about why we created this event. It has to do with a single sentence published in a report from the IPCC about 3 years ago. The sentence is written in that kind of jargon-heavy language that scientists love, so I won't read it. But the short summary is this. To avoid the worst impacts of climate change, we need to halve our emissions by 2030 and get them to net zero by 2050. I think this might be one of the most consequential sentences ever written. With those words, the IPCC is issuing a rallying cry to all of us, to cities and states and regions and companies and national governments. It's telling us to set out on a journey right now to those 2030 and 2050 targets, or to risk catastrophe. Of course, actually hitting those targets is going to be enormously challenging, and there will be many risks along the way. One of those risks is an excessive focus on 2050. That date is distant enough that it could allow leaders to lock in short-term profits at the expense of the kind of tough emissions reductions that need to be happening right now. But as our first keynote speaker today will explain, we can avoid that risk if we insist that companies follow best practice on their journey to net zero. When we do decide to act with genuine ambition, the scale of the change to our economies will be staggering. Tomorrow you're going to hear from a scientist who's mapped out some of the paths that America can take to reach net zero by 2050. It's going to be a wild ride, but as you'll discover, we won't need to invent crazy new technologies or break the bank to get there. We can reach net zero using technologies and spending levels that are very similar to those we have today. What we'll try to do here over the next 2 days is illuminate the path your organization can take to net zero. We'll start today by looking at what we know right now. You'll hear from leaders who are doing pioneering work in this area. And for organizations that haven't got started on their net zero journey, we've got a series of introductory sessions for you this morning. Then tomorrow we'll look at some of the ideas and innovations that will accelerate the transition to net zero in the future. I hope you'll find it inspiring as well as challenging. I'm an optimist and I think we're on the cusp of a transformation. The need to hit net zero is going to force us to reimagine so much of what we do. We're going to have to create new partnerships, new products and new business structures. And along the way, we can harness the energy involved in the transition to rethink some of the entrenched social and economic inequities that divide our society. This is a historic moment, and I think the IPCC realized that, because that report I mentioned contains 630 very dense pages. But near the beginning, just after the author's signatures, there's a quote from a man named Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He's best known as the author of The Little Prince, that classic children's book. Translated into English, that quote reads, "As for the future, it is not a matter of foreseeing it, but of making it possible." That's what we're here to do, so let's get started. Right now you're going to hear from Kate Cullen, a scientist at Berkeley and Oxford, who's worked with a team of researchers to answer a critical question. Just how far have we progressed on our journey to net zero?